What is going on, everybody? We are going to be talking another week of PGA golf. We have a special guest here, a good friend of mine and a guy who knows his stuff. He's been on with us before, and that's Kenny Hyder. He's going to be joining Sheets and I. So what's up, Kenny?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And Sheets, what do you think of this slate, first of all? And then we're going to jump into Kenny's takes before we get into our ranges and all that. Do you mind sharing your screen sheets?
Let me do it. Okay. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to whine a little bit for those who have not, who didn't watch our NBA video. This is actually kind of really screwed up. So you last week, Will Zalatoris and Luke List tied for first and played a playoff. The week before, I bet on both of them outright. Those are my only two bets 2 weeks before, was Luke List and Will Zalatoris. And the next week, they literally tied for first.
That's freaking crazy. Absolutely nuts.
Speaking of which, so Will Zalatoris is out. And my overall view of this slate, I mean, we'll get to when we go into the ranges, but I think it's going to be a type of construction for me that I'm not used to. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it seems like a high variance week. There's a lot of guys down at the bottom who I think are. I just think you have a lot of weak golfers in the field, and you don't have a lot of strength. So it's always going to open things up for some value down at the bottom of guys who could sort of come a little bit out of nowhere. Kenny, what are your sort of overall thoughts? You mentioned a few wild card guys to me earlier, and I was just curious to get your take if you have like an overall outlook of maybe some weird off the board plays, or how you'd be building. Would you just skip the top range and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, Pebble Beach is always fun to watch. And I think it's the type of course that, historical performance plays a little bit more than maybe a lot of other tournaments, just because it's such an iconic course. And, it's really unique in terms of the weather situations, things like that can happen like on a coastal course. So I'm excited for the tournament. I think this week, Zalatoris being out makes the build a lot easier. Because to me, there's a lot of value, in the mid to top range. So I think getting Willie Z out of there makes it a lot easier, because he would probably be my favorite for the week otherwise. Yeah. But also, there's a lot of older guys on this slate that I think have a really good chance that are just going to kind of be overlooked. So that's kind of where I'm looking this week.
Nice. Sounds good. Well, let's get into it. We do it by tiers. And we have a very small 10K tier today, but I guess it's a fair enough place to start. And I'll start with Sheets and then go over to Kenny. Guys, by the way, this booth better be the combination, because I've had too many good sweats lately and done well with golf, but it's time to win one. And I think this is a good week to get some of the off the board stuff with Kenny, and then we'll mix it in with mine and Sheets ideas and hopefully take one down. But 10K plus, I think you're going to see Cantlay as the highest owned. I think it makes sense. He's significantly the best golfer in the field. I mean, if you just look at overall, but who are you looking at, Sheets? And then we'll turn it over to Kenny.
Okay, first of all, just everybody keep in mind, it's a 3-day cut tournament. And the reason for that is there are 3 different courses. And, there's one course that's significantly harder than the other 2. I think that's Spyglass. So if you play Showdown, keep that in mind. And if your guy ends up on the wrong course, don't get discouraged after the first day. And if the guy ends up on the right course, don't get overly psyched after the first day, et cetera. So usually with in the no cut events, those usually lend themselves more to stars and scrubs, and the 2-day cuts usually are more middling. So this 3-day cut probably is kind of a blend. Like you could probably go a little bit more overweight towards stars and scrubs, but now we're not going completely stars and scrubs. So that said, I like both Cantlay and Berger, and I think they're both going to be equally owned. Berger's always owned. I mean, he's always the model darling, and I think both of them are going to be by probably 30%. Spieth is somebody that I just don't play, so I'm going to probably have 0 of that, and he's probably going to be significantly lower owned than the other 2, because if I don't play him, it's probably because a lot of people aren't playing him. So what's interesting is as we get down to some of these other ranges, if you want to play both Cantlay and Berger, for example, you can do it. I mean, it's certainly not ideal, but there, when you get down to some of these like lower 7K guys, you can make that work. Like, and we'll get to some of these guys later, but like if you wanted to play Cantlay and Berger, it leaves you 7,075. And that really puts a lot of pressure on you because it's not just like 7K, it's like 7K. You know, it's not like 7,700 doesn't do it for you, you know, like, so you can play both, but I do feel as though I'm going to have at least one of them in every one of my lineups.
Interesting. I like both of them as well. I will throw in some speed just because of the ownership discrepancy, and I think he's going to be far lower owned than even the guys beneath him. But I just, it'll be a very, very small percentage of my lineups. Kenny, where do you stand on the 10K plus?
On the 10K plus, I like Jason Day.
It's 9, so 99.
He's 99.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I think with Zalatoris being out, that kind of skews this range a little bit. I disagree that Cantlay is far better than everyone else in the field. I just don't think that's true. He had a great year last year.
You think that somebody else in the field actually has an argument to being a better golfer? Because we just did our top 15 golfers, me and you, the other day, and I don't remember anybody else in this field being on that list.
That's not true. I said Justin Rose over Cantlay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if anything, you got to have some exposure to Cantlay and Berger. I would probably try to be somewhere just under the field, just as kind of an insurance play. I don't think that I expect either of them to run away with this tournament. I don't think that's going to be the way that plays out at all. I think it'll be very close. I think, come Sunday, we're going to see probably 5 or 6 guys in real contention. So I don't think that there's a need to necessarily, go heavy on either of them. And really, I prefer this week, a more conserved build and not spending up, especially, Patrick Cantlay is 11-2, and then, next most expensive golfer is almost 1,000 cheaper. It's just, I think it's, yeah, I understand he's a great golfer, won golf of the year thanks to John Rahm and COVID, and you got to have some exposure to him, but I just don't think that 30% really makes any sense to me for either of them, and that's why I named Jason Day, because I'd rather start there than start at the top.
So you have like that idea. Yeah. See, that's the thing is that I was going to jump into the next round. I really like, I think Day and McNeely are going to be 2 of the chalkiest golfers along with Cantlay, but I really like both of those guys as well. And let's kick off that second round, because I think what you're saying is an interesting build, something I try to do a lot in this particular tournament, especially with it being a 3-day cut. I actually just felt like Cantlay, I don't see him not being in like somewhere in there. You know what I mean? It's not like he has like, he almost never misses any cuts. Especially a 3-day cut here. So I like him for that reason, but I hear you that Day is a great play. I like McNeely as well. Another guy who fits the course pretty well based on his brief history. What are you guys doing in this next range? And Kenny, why don't you start off this 9K range and we'll do sheets after.
Yeah, so the 9K range, I like a lot. I really like Jason Day. I think he's in great form. His back doesn't seem to be bothering him at all anymore. He's an elite golfer. He's been best golfer in the world. There's no reason that he couldn't contend and get back to that point this season. I also like I like McNeely. I think he's a little chalky. I'd rather go to Justin Rose, who I also expect to have a great season this year. He's also been around. He's played this course a bunch. He's got great history here. Even though it's some time ago, but also in the 9K range, I'm going to be pretty heavy on both Kisner and Strealman. And Strealman's another one of those guys I really think is kind of overlooked. It's good to see him praised in the 9K range. Seems like the past year he's been not credited as heavily. Obviously, it's not as studded of a field. But, he's got the past 5 years at this tournament, the worst he's done is 14th, including a 2nd and a 6th and a 7th. So I'll definitely be heavy on Strealman, especially with the projected ownership being so low. And Kisner, just because, also I think he's going to be overlooked a little bit. He's fair price. And, he is good on, on the putting greens. We expect Kisner to do pretty well this week, and especially considering Fitzpatrick and Tringali being so really projected to, on ownership, those are really the guys I'll be focusing on in this range.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense. What about you, Sheets? What are your take on the 9K?
You know what's great, and this is I'm so happy Kenny's on here to get like other voices on here. But you know what's going to be awesome at the end of this? We could be like a real like one of those DFS sites, because someone's going to come in and win something, and someone's going to be happy with someone on this site because I'm not going to have a share of Jason Day. I'm going to be probably avoiding, like, I'm not going to have a share of Kevin Strealman. I mean, he literally said not showing up for me at all. Not to mention, I think he has a freaking bad attitude, which I've talked about.
You talked about, yeah, not Russell Henley.
Right, not Russell Henley. That's correct. I will say that of the 9K range, the three guys I like, you guys did. Kenny did hit on them as probably being too chalky. So I will say who they are. My top rated guy is Fitzpatrick, and at 15% ownership, you don't have to play that. Justin Rose at 9,600. I have him pretty high, Kenny. I have him like 15-16%. And I don't think I need to play that. And the other guy that you mentioned, who I play pretty much every week, is Tringali, but at 18%, I'm probably not going to get too much of that either. So for me, we're gonna battle on this one. And we'll just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm sort of somewhere in between you guys. I liked what Kenny mentioned. I actually think that, I mean, like Kenny said, Strealman's been great at this course. He's been really, really bad driving the ball, which has always been a strength of his. Like, so it's kind of strange, but he actually did look better last week, even though it wasn't a great result. So I'm sort of in between on Strealman, but I think I do like him. The Kisner one, I think is just, it's cool because you're going to get low ownership on him, I think, pretty much no matter what. The one guy you guys didn't mention was Seamus Power, and I'm just kind of open to, like, this guy has looked really, really, really good. And I mean, his last 4 tournaments, he has a 4, 15, a 3, and a 14. And they were, for the most part, more difficult courses, more difficult fields than this one is. So it's another guy to throw in the mix. This whole range, I feel sort of like in between on, except for I do like McNeely and I do like Jason Day. But I like the Fitz idea. I actually thought Fitz was going to be a little bit lower on than the other one. So that was my interest there. But this is a range I sort of don't have a huge take on. I sort of like everybody, and it sort of speaks even more to maybe skipping that top range and playing the 9K, starting in your 9Ks with your builds. I think that's an interesting route to go. Which again is different from Sheets. So we are all sort of a little different here. Let's get down to the 8K. Sheets, why don't you start this one off with who you like, and Kenny, you'll go next.
I will also say that in deference to Kenny's build is that the thing that I said about having either one of Cantlay or Berger in every lineup, that is going to be an extremely popular approach. Okay, so if you can get away with fading both of them, you are going to have a really, really good build, especially for the higher, the lower entries, the higher amount of entries type tournaments. Okay, terrible way of describing it, but so if you can get away with that, that's extremely strong way to play. With respect to the 8K range, my favorite one in the 8K range is a guy who, I played before. I have to say that I'm a little nervous to play him, and that would be Matt Jones at 8K. He's just, I guess at only 8K, he doesn't need to do all that much for me to be happy about it. He is my top rated 8K guy, so I'm probably going to end up with him though. And then the next guy I have is a guy that I typically always get wrong. So if I play him, he's probably not going to make the cut, and that was going to be Mito Pereira. Literally every time I don't play him, he finishes top 10. Every time I play him, he misses the cut. So
he's only missed one cut on tour, FYI.
That's probably when I played him 100%.
Yeah.
So I do like that as my next 8K. And then the other one I have 2 more for you. One is more of an eye test gut thing, and one is kind of a model play. And this one kind of fits into Kenny's build a little bit better than some of the other 8Ks. Is Ryan Palmer at 8,900. He fits into that, like kind of upper tier, but not exactly top tier type thing. But Ryan Palmer seems to fit that. But the one guy who's been kind of sneaky, who's been just doing a little bit better, he's known as just kind of like a putting guru, but he's been actually hitting the ball better, is Denny McCarthy. And he's a guy that some people like to play just on course where, you have to be just a good putter to win. Otherwise, but he's been doing better and he's been hitting the ball better. So I kind of like him a little bit here at 8,200. So those are my 8K guys.
Yeah, before Kenny goes, I'm just going to mention, I think the Palmer thing is interesting. He's played this course twice and he missed the cut, but he is red hot right now. He's looked really good, and we got him in chalky weeks because he's been good in the past at Torrey Pines and whatnot. But he's actually looked really, really, really solid for a while. His price is a little bit higher than we usually have been paying for him, but then again, the field is weaker. And I'm with you. I love Mito, but Kenny, why don't you take it away with your favorites?
Yeah, so also on the Ryan Palmer train here, I think his recent form looks great. He's one of those guys that isn't real flashy, he's kind of looked at as like an older guy, but I think he's looking really good recently, especially watching him last week. And again, I do think that there are some similarities, even though no one really makes this comparison between Torrey Pines and Pebble Beach, both being close to California courses, dealing with similar wind and cliff, swooping kind of par threes and things like that. The courses have some similarities. He played great last week. I am a little concerned about him. In terms of his putting in the 8K range, he loses the most strokes to the field in putting specifically. But I don't also know his particular history on POA greens, which tend to play a little bit differently for most golfers. Also this week, I get the Mito play. I just think it's easiest to fade him when he's the highest projected own in the 8K range. But he does, rank out, in the 8K range, he has the most strokes gained against the field at 1.08 total. So I understand that. I probably have a little bit of exposure to him. I'll probably be going to Bezuidenhout this week, who I really like. Has been playing really great. I like South African golfers in general when there's, unexpected winds that can happen on a course, especially, when we're on this kind of cliffy sort of setting. South Africans, I just have a belief that they tend to do well in those kinds of scenarios just based on what I've seen. So I'll have some exposure to him. I also will probably have quite a bit of Lanto Griffin, who I'm surprised neither of you mentioned, who's also been playing great. Last time he played this course, he was top 10. And, he ranks well on approach and on putting, which I think is going to be crucial this week. So probably Lanto and Bezzy would be my heavier ones, with also, trying to get in some Ryan Palmer.
Yeah. So I like that you said all the guys you said. The Lanto thing, I actually was going to mention him as well. But I think I prefer Bezuidenhout, and then you get the lower ownership with Palmer. So that's sort of why I sort of was siding the other way. I love the Bezuidenhout idea. I think that this is a guy. So the only two golfers who are top 10 in 100 from 125 yards out and 125 to 150 yards out across their last 50 rounds are Russell Knox and Bezuidenhout. And we'll get to Russell Knox in the next part, but I like both of these guys. This is a perfect course for that. You need to have just the short game, and these guys definitely have been awesome at it. So I'm going to keep riding that train as well.
Absolutely. And Bezuidenhout is second in the field on approach to Daniel Berger. So that gives you, this is a course where approach is going to be a huge thing. It's not as much about driving distance. It's a lot more about accuracy and, getting it in close. And, Seabez ranks out second in the field there. And that's, he's quite a bit cheaper than Berger. So if you're looking at that sort of a thing, it's a hard consideration there.
Definitely. And we have no Charlie Hoffman this week from you?
No,
not for you. The other one I was just going to ask you guys about, just because it's a guy who we play quite a bit. He's basically always a cut maker with upside, and he showed more upside even last year. And that was just Brian Harmon. Just again, another guy who on a shorter course you'd think could take some advantage. Did finish third the last time he was out there. So I had a little bit of interest in him at low ownership, but it's really an ownership play and a guy who I just think is maybe it wouldn't have surprised me if he was 9,400 in the same field with the field out there. So I was going to ask both of you guys, Kenny, any thoughts on Brian Harmon at all?
Yeah, I typically like Brian Harmon. he's got a complete game, and he seems to, at least the first couple of tournaments this season, he's done well. He got a top 3 at the Amex, so not a bad play. I just like, in this range, with everyone else being in around or sub 10% projected ownership. I don't know if I'll probably have some exposure to him. It's just easier for me to get to Vince Wadenhout or to Ryan Palmer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sheets, no thoughts on Brian Harmon?
Yeah, he just feels like more of like a high sevens type guy than someone in the 8Ks.
Yeah, I probably going to take a small shot there, but again, not like my favorite in the range. Just wanted to ask about it.
Hey, look, I want to stray for just a second before you go to the 7K range. So Kenny, you brought up I don't want to say a term, but you brought up something when you were discussing, I forget whether it was Justin Rose or Jason Day or something like that. The concept of like, well, some people like regard him as like an old guy or something like that, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of different guys that between you and Bobby's other kind of like sneaky golf source, you've been really, really dead on with some of these guys that people have this perception of either being old or older or washed up or whatever it is, that are having like resurgences. I don't know whether but somebody came up with Stuart Sink at some point. I'm like, who the hell is, are you kidding me? And he's been doing nothing but great stuff this year. You were, and Bobby's other people were talking about how Justin Rose and Jason Day could have good seasons and things like that. And they've been doing really, really well. And there was that British guy that you came up with. And I forget what the British Open or something. Yeah, the Richard Bland. And who the hell?
Who just got second at the Dubai Classic last week, by the way.
Freaking crazy. And again, it's part of it is, with all the new technology there is out there and all the TrackMaster and all the analytics and stuff like that, there are guys that can keep playing for like a while and reinvent themselves with technology and better drivers and better whatever. So I think that's sneaky because I'm like that type of guy. I'm like the guy say, oh, well, I don't want to play Matt Kuchar. I don't want to play, a guy with gray hair against, I'd rather play like, Will Zalatoris, or some
Hovland or Morikawa.
Hovland, you know what I mean? Well, who wants to play Stuart Sink, whose freaking son is like older than half the guys he's competing against,
Right.
So
I think that's the thing, golf is going through a big transformation right now, obviously, especially like with everything that DeChambeau is doing and, it just becoming more of a distance game, stuff like that. And, there are now more than ever, pro golfers entering the field. It's becoming a bigger sport. The sport is overall growing. There's more people entering the PGA Tour season over season than there ever has been. The prize pools are bigger than they ever have been this season. And a lot of attention's on the young guys. And that makes a lot of sense because everyone wants to see the next new up and comer. Everyone's trying to, figure out who the next go-to guy is going to be when, the fact is, you can play golf well into your 60s and do very well if you're an elite golfer. And a lot of people forget, hey, some of these guys, just because they haven't had they've had a couple of bad seasons, and haven't won anything since, Zalatoris has been on tour, doesn't mean that they can't come back and, whoop some ass, and I think you just have to consider, and that's where, and I know Bobby has, a much less of a predisposition than I do to recent form in golf, which I totally understand. And I think that, there's something to that. But also, when you see some of these guys who have had very, very successful careers, have won a lot, have won majors, start to play well again and start to, post some top 20s and stuff like that. It's like, you should be paying attention because these guys are good.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it's part of that. The mix in golf is trying to mix that in with the young up and coming guys who don't have history and maybe are being overlooked because of that, and trying to catch guys on the way up the way we did sort of a while ago, a year and a half ago with Sam Burns and Matt Wolff. All right, let's talk about we'll do 75 to 79, and then we'll go down to the bottom part because it's a huge range. Kenny,
I'll tell you this. I think this is a better way to do this because I basically like pretty much everybody in the 7K range, right? Because of my no. So why don't you guys start, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of fill in what I think you guys, because I honestly in the 7K range I have no like one guy who stands out over like 9 other guys. I have a mix of guys that based on the way my models work are really close to one another. So I want to see who you guys come up with, and I'll kind of fill in who I had that you guys didn't have.
Sounds good. Kenny, why don't you start it off and I'll go after you.
So I don't like this range as much. I like the 7 to 7,400 range a lot better. But in this range, which also kind of just plays into the way I'm looking to build with heavy on the 9 8K range and then dropping down. But in this range, actually, so Kuchar is right up there for me. I think again, talking about the old guys, he's playing well. He is gains massively around the greens. He gains on being against the field here. He's had decent success. He's never put up any major top finishes at this course, but he could. And I think also this this year the field's a little bit weaker than it has been some of the past years when he's played. So I'll be looking to Kuchar, even though I know he's a little bit chalky here, but I think there's a good reason for that. And that's a little bit of the chalk that I'll be willing to eat this week. The other guy that I like in this range is going to be one that I have hardly ever played, but he just seems to look like he fits well, has put up a couple of good scores past couple of weeks. And is in the middle of range of strokes gained total against the field, and that is Andrew Putnam at a low percent ownership there. He's going to be kind of my sneaky play in this range. And other than that, I don't really care for too many people. Maybe a little bit of Russell Knox, who's also a little chalky. And I know people are going to be on Aaron Rye this week because of his performance last week, but I will not be.
I like Aaron Rye. I'm going to keep riding this one. He's been in good form, and I am going to, he's got 4 top 20s in his last 6 events. He, I think, is a guy we can catch a little bit more on the way up. So he sort of fits that mold for me. I understand, any justification for not playing or playing these guys. Obviously we can't play anybody. I like Aaron Rye, I like Russell Knox. I'm flirting with maybe playing Chris Kirk instead of Kuchar, because I think you're getting significant ownership discount. And I don't think Chris Kirk, as even though he's not been in good form, I think he's a better golfer than most of the guys in this range are at this moment of his life. I just think he's having a little bit of a rough go. But those are my main guys, and I'm sort of I'm sort of stuck between and Kenny helped a little bit with the Kuchar, because I already had him as do I want Kuchar? Do I like Kuchar? Do I like Kirk? Or do I like who was the other one I had in there? Glover. And I definitely think that it tells me a little bit even more on Kuchar. He's only had 1 top 10 here, but first of all, we don't need him to come top 10. And but he has played well here, and it's just the short course should benefit him. So I like the idea of playing him on a course like this, as opposed to most weeks where I don't. So I like the idea of maybe getting to Kuchar. And then everybody else who's been, had Michael Thompson's had some good results lately. Putnam I hadn't considered, but I know he's going to have a little bit of ownership, and I didn't dig enough into that one, I guess. And that's pretty much all I have. I don't really love playing Joel Dahmen, so I'm going to skip that one. It's going to mostly be Rye, Knox, and maybe Kuchar or Kirk would be my guys in this range.
So I kind of lied when I said, I love the whole 7K range. If I knew we were going to break it down between 7 and 75 and 75 and higher, I actually don't like a shred of anything in the 75 to 8K.
There you go.
79. Everything I like is lower. The only guys that I like, if we're going to include actually 7,500 in that, I do like Keith Mitchell. So he's like the only guy, and I have him as a very, very strong play actually. But aside from that, the only guy I have in that upper 7K range that you mentioned is the dumb hat guy. Is Joel Dahmen. Yeah, Joel Dahmen. He's straight 7,500 also. Guy. Yeah. Yeah. So JDDH. Yeah, Joel Dahmen, dumb hat. So aside from that, most of my interest is in the lower 7.
All right. Well, so I guess we could keep going in this one. So Kenny, let's do it. What guys from 7K to 7,400 do you have interest in?
Okay, so I think that there's a lot of value in this range. There's a decent amount of guys that have had great course history in this range. Those guys, namely Troy Merritt, Nick Taylor, Matthew Neesmith, Ches Reavie, have all had great success at this course. You know, not all of them are playing as well, great, you know, recently. So, you know, there's some decisions to be made there. For me, I'm specifically going to be focused on 3 golfers in this range. And that'll be one, Nick Taylor, who is playing great, won this tournament 2 years ago. You know, not really highly projected to be owned, which just kind of baffles me. Anytime someone's won a tournament in the past 3 years, for, you know, the projected ownership to be, you know, 10% or less, just doesn't make any sense to me. The next one is going to be Dean Burmester, who I like. He's, you know, one of those guys where when I'm looking at stats, anytime a guy that, you know, is in a field that doesn't have any history and just doesn't, you know, has no colors to look at, those are the guys I kind of single out because they usually are just easily skipped by everyone else. But looking at, you know, his recent form, he's been playing well. He's just not been playing on the PGA Tour. He's, you know, in the top 5 of people strokes gained against the entire field. You know, I think that he's going to get pretty much unnoticed. We have him projected at 5%, so I'll be all over Dean Burmester. And then again, Scott Stallings, who is another one of those guys who I said, Bobby, a couple of weeks ago when we were watching, that I think is going to have a great season this year. And, you know, has been, you know, played okay last week, got 46, you know, nothing impressive. But he does rank out well, strokes gained. He's also had, you know, a couple of top 10 finishes at this course. And he's also one of those guys that I think is just a really, really great golfer that just doesn't get a whole lot of attention, especially compared to some of the guys in this field that are a little bit more, you know, have had a little bit more light on them recently, like a Pat Perez or, you know, Thagala. I'm sure you liked it this week as well, Bobby, which I understand. But those are, you know, those are going to be my 3 guys: Nick Taylor, Dean Burmester, and Scott Stallings.
Yeah, I like that. I really like the Burmester call, especially. I do like some of these over guys. I think this is a good setup for Pat Perez, you know, California guy, and I will play some of that. I really like Thagala, and it's just more of a, I'm going to just try to be ahead on this guy. And it's not that people don't know of him, but he's starting to play better and better. Had a little bit, you know, had a bad final 27 holes. Otherwise, he could have looked like he was going to have a chance to take that one down last week, and that would have been very nice because I had about 25% of them at like 4% ownership, which was pretty sweet. But I'm going to keep riding Thagala a little bit. I had a couple question guys that I had on my list. I like the Stallings. I do like Joseph Bramlett a little bit. Another one who, you know, played well on the Corn Ferry Tour, and, you know, they were talking about during the end that he enlisted, and the last playoff those guys were in with Zalatoris, where he enlisted in Zalatoris on the 1 year ago, almost to the day, I guess, on the Corn Ferry Tour, which I thought was kind of funny. So I just another guy who I had some interest in down there. I also like Matt Neesmith, but I think he's going to be pretty popular. And the guy I wanted to ask you about, who we've tended to like to play. I agreed with the Merrick thing. But the guy who's done well on these shorter courses in the past and has, you know, won 3 tournaments two years ago, who's not going to get any ownership, is Brennan Todd. And I just sort of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because Sheets, you and I especially have talked a lot about Todd in different spots over the last couple of years, and just seems like a decent enough situation for him to have a solid tournament. So he was one I actually wanted both your guys' input on. So Kenny, why don't you answer that one first, and then Sheets, you can sort of talk to the whole range.
So Brennan Todd, I don't like this week. In general, he's a guy that I typically look at just because I think he kind of fits in one of those under the radar kind of guys that has a really solid game. However, he doesn't have a great history at this course. He hasn't played it in a while. He hasn't really done very well over the past. I mean, he's made 2 cuts and just he hasn't really been playing much. So, you know, for me, he's more of a question mark. You know, his stats are kind of average. You know, he doesn't really gain or lose strokes in any particular category, but he also just doesn't really pop for me. So, you know, he's one of those guys that, you know, will be on my radar once he starts playing a little bit more regularly week to week, and I can kind of have an eye on him.
All right, we got you. Sheets, any thoughts on top? Oh, one more guy I want to mention before I'm done was Adam Hadwin was another one who I had at just really low ownership, and it doesn't. I just think he's as good or better golfer than a lot of the guys in this range. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, Sheets. What about
So
Todd?
I want to address the Brendan Todd thing in terms of the distance thing. And I'm not. I want to say steal this take from Rick, but not really. I want to explain this a little bit. There's a couple of courses like this where even though it's a short course, it is not one of those courses that necessarily helps the short hitters. And what happens is even though the course itself is short, there are holes that if you don't get it to like a certain part of the terrain, you don't get to benefit from the short part of the course, if that makes any sense. Like if you end up like short, you'll end up on one of these like downhill lies that it just doesn't matter if you're only going 170 to the hole, it's not going to help you. And if you can get that extra 20 yards, you get to the bottom of the hill and you get to go up the hill like that. So it's not that you necessarily gain from being like a shorter, more accurate hitter. It's just that bombing it is not necessarily that big of an advantage. I guess that's the best way to describe this. So as long as you're a middle of the road driver, you're going to be just fine. It's not like the bombers are necessarily a disadvantage if they miss, or the short hitters are at an advantage if they keep it in the fairway. So let me just throw in some 7K guys also. And I honestly, again, you've seen this, we do this a lot of times. There are times where I really just want to lock in a couple of 7Ks, but all these guys are really, really close. That's why I want to just take ownership of the whole range. And I'm going to, and I want to just add a couple of guys that you guys didn't touch on. And honestly, like my top 5 guys, you guys didn't even mention. So it may as well just throw them in there. Yeah, the first one is Alex Smalley. Next one is Wyndham Clark, and then 2 Taylors, Taylor Moore and Taylor Pendrith, and then the Vincent Whaley. The other guys you guys mentioned, specifically Scott Stallings, who Kenny mentioned, I really like, and your Thigala shows up as well. And another guy who you played before, Bobby, is Patrick Rogers. I like him as well, and so I do think that this whole range is just, and it's weird. I don't think anybody in this range is going to be necessarily that chalky because there's so many of them that could, you know what I mean? There's so many that are pretty good. Yeah. So, so the point is that I'm not telling a person not to play Burmester. You know what I mean? Because I've never heard of him. And I'm not telling you to avoid Burmester because it seems like a perfect freaking Kenny play. Just to play Burmester and and have him be like -7 after the first day or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying that it's not. I don't think you're going to get the same like ownership discount as you think by playing Burmester over some of the other 7Ks. Now he could be just better, which is also very, very, very likely. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the point is that it's not like I'm fading the Thigala chalk to play Burmester. You know what I mean? Because even Thigala, I think Thigala is and what I'm looking at. Thigala is actually the most popular of the whole 7K range, the sub 7,500, and he's only 10%. You know what I mean? So it's not like anybody's going to be that chalky in this range. I didn't realize when you were going over some of these guys how Kuchar was going to be like 13, 15. I can't play that. You know what I mean? Like there's just so. I would rather play like Taylor Pendrith at 400 less and leave money on the table than even play Kuchar straight up, So the more I'm looking at this, it's really fun. I'm so glad we're going over it this way, because we're going to go over the individual tiers, but let me just talk about build for a minute. Like I could like play Cantley Berger and then just shuffle some of the real low 7K guys. But if I want to play, it's weird. If I want to play the 74, 7500s, I've got to play some of these 9K guys that I said I didn't want to play. You know what I mean? Because I won't be able to afford the other 10K, and I don't want to leave 1,000 on the table. So I am going to probably have to play some of these 9Ks. So I'm going to go back and look at these guys you talked about, because if I want to play these 7,500, 7,400 guys that you like, and I can't play both studs, I'm going to have to dip it to those 9Ks, which is it's going to be kind of cool.
I like it. All right, let's get into the 6K range. And I think we have to do, look, there's not going to be a bunch of guys below 6,500, but Kenny probably will find some. So I'm going to tier this out between the the 6,500 and 7K and 65 and 69.
Oh, really? You're gonna actually break it down? Okay. All right.
Yeah, because Kenny's gonna have some weird ones.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's hear it.
I just got a fair guess on that one. So
Well,
Kenny,
let me go first, things. I only
okay,
have
you
two
go, Chief,
guys.
you go first.
I only have 2 guys below 7K that I would even play for a share. Just because, again, if I like all the 7,100s, I mean, why should I? So and I'm probably not going to play them, but Mark Hubbard and Peter Uihlein.
I have both those guys on my list. Kenny, who do you like in this range?
This is a really tough one. In this range, I think just typically, one second here. I would go to Doc Redmond because I believe in him as a player. There's not really any, substantial evidence for him this week. I mean, he's played at his tournament once. He made the cut 2 years ago, got 50th. That's fine. He's kind of average against the field. He had an okay week last week, but I do think that Doc Redmond has a successful career ahead of him. This would be a good place for me to probably fit him in if I'm looking for a salary saver there with a name I'm at least familiar with. Other than that, probably I like Kevin Chappell, who doesn't rank out all that well, but has been making cuts lately. Has had a couple of top 25s, a top 10 at this tournament. So I'd be comfortable with him at 6,800 and, projected, 2% ownership or something like that. And then the last one would be, and another one that I don't really like, but I know has a good potential, and also one of those guys that's kind of on the older side would be oh wait, no, that's not who I'm looking at. I was going to say Jimmy Walker, but I actually meant who I would like in this range would be Mark Hubbard, just because of his he's at the top of the field in this range in strokes gained approach and in putting, as well as in this range overall strokes gained. So I think that there could be a little bit of an argument for him there. He's also the only golfer really projected to do better than the field in terms of fantasy scoring. So I might have a look at him, but other than that, I really don't have anything in this range. I do like a little bit more the cheaper range, sub 6,500. So we can wait for that.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll jump into that in a minute. I think this. I like a few guys in this range. James Hahn is my favorite. I think that he's going to be extremely low owned. He's actually played. He just has, he's putted poorly. He's missed some easy ones, but I think he stands out as being like a really good wild card play at really low ownership. I had Chappell, Smotherman, Svensson, and Hubbard all on my list, with Hubbard being my second favorite behind James Hahn. So that's what I had for this range. So we're not totally off on different directions, but we're in a similar spot here. And Sheets, do you have anybody below 6,500? I know usually we don't.
No.
Okay. I have a couple. Kenny, how about you?
I have 2 below 6,500 that I do like and that I will be playing. The first one's Brian Gay. And I like him purely just because he's had a great history at this tournament. He's past 4 years had 2 top 10s. He's made the cut, 4 out of 5 years. And I think he's a great pick for a cut maker. He doesn't need to win the tournament. He just need, in this range, we're really just looking for cut makers so we can get 6s, right? So for that, I like Brian Gay. And then the other one I like for no reason at all, but he was one of those guys that also had no data. So I had to dig into him, and he's actually on Sheets model. He's ranked dead last with 0s across the board because there's no data. And that's Brad Merrick at 6K even.
Yeah, I didn't get anything on
it. So I looked him up. He made the cut at the PGA last year when Phil won it, which is the only tournament in the past 2 years that's on the PGA Tour that he's played. However, he is a professional PGA coach in the Bay Area.
Ooh,
so he's local. He's a coach. He's a professional. He's got to be a good golfer, even though he doesn't record. He doesn't have any data against him. He made the cut at a major last year. So I'll be, kind of looking for that little surprise Brad Merrick to make the cut.
Love it. I love the off the board, and because you had mentioned him to me, I had him on my list, so I'm going to give you the credit on that one or the blame. No, I'm just kidding. But I had my actually as not necessarily a priority play, but of the under 6K, under the 7K guys, I had Brian Gay also, and then we hadn't even spoken about that one. So you know how I feel when we tend to agree. I'm going to tend to ride with those guys, and those are the only guys I had down here that I had any interest in.
All right, this is what we're gonna do, by the way, just to surprise you guys. So I'm gonna add one more thing to the contest here. Okay.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up with, who's gonna win the tournament. We're gonna come up with top guy under 10K to make top 5. We're gonna get top guy under 9K to make top 10, top guy under 8K to make top 20, and top guy under 7K to make the cut. But we're also going to do top guy over 9K to miss the cut. That's what we're going to do.
I love it.
Ooh,
right.
We're going to go 9K or higher to miss the cut, which probably should be a little greedy. It probably should
That's going to be top, the 9K or higher.
Yeah, let's do 8,500. 8,500 or higher to miss the cut.
Okay. Kenny, you want to start this off with the
who's going to win
to win the tournament?
Yeah, who's going to win?
To win the tournament, Jason Day.
Okay. Sheets.
I'm going to go Daniel Berger.
And I will be chalky and say Patrick Cantlay. But I guess we both went a little chalky, and there we go. All right. So under 10K to top 5. Kenny, I guess you already used one of the under 10K guys in Day. So anybody else under, it could be any range, just guy you want.
I'll take Kevin Strealman.
Okay.
Bad attitude.
She takes this guy's attitude because he saw him play live once.
Yes, that's correct. Excuse me, I saw him play one hole once.
All right, she
sounds like a good reason to judge all of your
absolutely
futures.
Absolutely. Hey, you got 150 golfers. I'll take anything.
Who's in top 5?
Yeah, I will go with Matt Fitzpatrick.
I like that call actually a lot. I'm going to go with Bezadenhout. And we can move on. I know that's a little cheaper, but that's the guy who I had the best ranked left. I was thinking about the guy we didn't talk about which was Tringale, but I think I'm going to go with Bezadenhout. The guy's been really good, and I think he's going to have a breakthrough performance soon. All right, Kenny, who's coming top 10 has to be under 8K.
Under 9K.
Under 9K.
Under 9K.
Excuse me.
Well, I would have picked Bezadenhout, but you just did. So I'll go with, I'm going to go with Kisner.
Kisner, all right. All right.
Is he under 9K?
He's 9K even. Does that work or no?
No, it doesn't count.
Okay. Oh, okay. Then
like
I'll go with, I'll go with one we didn't talk about at all, who's a player that Sheets actually got right when he won last year, which is Matt Jones.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
For me,
yep.
Go next. So my top 8K to get top 10. Again, probably chalky, but I'll go with what it is Ryan Palmer.
I don't think Ryan Palmer's chalky.
I mean, a chalky pick. I mean, it's 8,900. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. I'll take Mito.
Okay.
And top 20
under 8K. I mean,
I'll
just go with my projection of this one, just because. Yeah. I'll go Alex Smalley.
All right, I actually like the Smalley, so I'm into it. Kenny.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say Kuchar.
Ooh, okay.
I'm gonna say Thigala. And
under 7K to make the cut. Now again, it's 3-day cut. So you got some time.
Yeah, I was panicked after a day one last time. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on with the predicted cut line. I was like, how can it be triple what the average score is with the top 60 score?
I'm gonna go because I'm gonna, because if I came up with the same guy that one of the guys that Kenny came up with is good enough for me, and that'll be Mark Hubbard.
That's who I was gonna pick as well. Sheets. I'm sorry, Kenny. Who you got?
I'll say. I don't like this at all. Fuck it. I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna go with Brad Merrick.
There we go. And I will go with James Hahn. And the James Hahn Brad Merrick combination, I can already visualize whatever it's $250,000 or whatever it is. That's going to be the winning combo this week. I did forget to mention one guy who I had on my list decently and under 7K. Oh wait, we can do that still. Oh no, we can't do that. Ryan Armour was the other guy I hadn't mentioned, but I did like him under 7K as a cut.
All right, so who under 8,500 or 8,500 or higher is not making the cut?
I'll go. I'm gonna take and he's been really good, but I'm gonna say Tom Hoagie.
Interesting. I'm gonna say
top fours in his last four tournaments.
I'm gonna actually say Fitzpatrick.
Whoa, that would be a little sleeper there.
Well, that's fine. That's fine by me because since you're doing that, now we can reveal why I didn't want to let you pick Kisner at 9K or higher, because I wanted Kisner to miss the cut at 9K. So it's either him or Strealman with the bad attitude. So I'll go with so it's going to be it'll be Kisner. Okay, so 9K Kevin Kisner to miss the cut.
All right, I like. I'm going to go through real quick and say my. Kenny, did you say yours?
Yeah. Who do you have for missing the cut, Bobby?
My missing the cut was Tom Hoagie.
Right. Okay.
The priority plays, and some of these are going to be chalky, some will not. Berger for me, based on literally what all of us are coming up with. Berger, or some of us start to disagree, but Berger can't lay day. I still like Justin Rose, Strealman, Kisner, Fitzpatrick, Mito Pereira, Bezaden Hoot, Palmer, Jones, Thagala, and Hubbard as the lower owned one with possibly Kuchar, and I'm gonna make sure to play a little bit of Brad Merrick for our boy Kenny, because he's done me right every time. This
is great. I'm finally enjoying the content provider life. Now I finally see why everybody seems to enjoy this so much, because now if Matt Fitzpatrick wins the tournament, I will brag that I picked him top 5. If he misses the cut, we'll brag that Kenny suggested he would miss the cut. So this is easy giving out plays, and you have enough people giving out plays, then somebody's got to be right about something. This is easy business. I don't know why everybody doesn't do this.
Watch Seamus Power win, well, I'll be wrong.
Exactly.
That's what's gonna happen. All right, Kenny. So what was the last one? Any highlights before we get out of here, Kenny? Any other guys or anything that maybe you want to highlight that you really like? I know the Brad Merrick thing. You've already made a lot of bold calls, so I like
but take that with a grain of salt. That's just no reason to make the cut. I don't expect this guy to put up a top 10 or something like that. For me, I'm still going to be heavy. I'm heavy on Jason Day. I'm going to be heavy on Justin Rose. I'm going to be heavy on bad attitude Strealman, and probably Biz Wainhoot are going to be my top plays at the top, and then going down a little further, a lot of the same guys that you mentioned. But I also do like a little bit of the more off the board ones that you were mentioning, playing a Chris Kirk, or playing an Adam Hadwin, some of that kind of stuff. I think it'd be really sneaky. I will be also focused heavily on the Troy Merritt, Scott Stallings, and maybe even a little bit of Scott Piercy, although I don't really like him this week at all. Just guys in the lower range that have had good course histories here, I'm going to be focused on a lot.
So what have we learned today? We've learned bad attitude. We've got dumb hat. We've got the teaching pro with the 0 projection, because I don't have any data. We got we got a lot of stuff going on here. So but in all seriousness, I mean, I think that it's going to be a good tournament. I mean, I really like. I'm getting psyched for this. And as far as how to attack this, look, I'm gonna be totally honest that I'm gonna be using, especially in the like the pitch and putt, whatever. I'm literally gonna shuffle off the guys that we mentioned here, especially in that later contest. And I'm gonna have some of all of that. And I promise you that between my builds and Kenny's builds, one of them is going to win. Because I really think that I'm gonna have more of the Cantley burger than I usually would ever have.
Maybe it's gonna be this guy. Maybe it's gonna be me with the in-between builds.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I think. I think that most people are gonna do one of two, Cantley or burger and X. And I think that's a real sharp way to play is the way Kenny's considering is, look, if my projections were just like a little bit, more allowed me to do it, I think that that's a really, really good way to approach it, just to throw them both out and just take your stance on Day, Rose, and all the other 70, 75-year-old guys and just hope you can get there. But we'll see. It'll be fun to see exactly what happens.
Yeah, all or neither, I actually think are both of those can be good for tournaments. Because like if you do play the burger Cantley thing instead of just playing the fairly owned guys in the bottom range, it's going to be very hard to get the rest of the range right. So even if that becomes a popular build, you don't need both those guys to win. If you end up getting two contenders from your lower tier guys to go along with them and two other cut makers, that's how you can win a tournament. So I actually think either neither or both actually makes, in some ways, just from a game theory standpoint, better sense.
Hey, I want to just drill you on one more thing, only because when you talked about your under 8, Kenny, when you talked about your under 8K guys for the later contest, they weren't like the top 3 that you said you were going to focus in on whatever. So I want to revisit the Taylor, Burmester, and Stallings specifically. Do you still like those 3 the best, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely like those 3 the best. I also do. I do like a little bit. I forgot to mention Charles Schwartzel, another South African this week, who I think is actually really great. And I think 7,100, he's just way underpriced, especially against this field. So I do like him. I didn't mention that. But yeah, those 3 guys mainly.
Brad Merrick.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. We obviously have to keep doing this, especially once somebody takes down the money. Maybe it's going to be us. Maybe it's going to be one of the subscribers. But let's do it this week. And let's go Team True DFS. Kenny, great to have you. Thanks for coming by. And we'll have you again as soon as you're ready, because which probably means next week, hopefully.
Welcome to Brad Merrick season.
There we go. Let's go, guys. Good luck, everybody.